Right, my name is Raphael Heath, the Head of Geography at the Royal High School Bath, and I'm going to talk you through data enrichment with ArcGIS online through this tutorial, as I think it's something that will be useful for use in geography lessons for subscribers to ArcGIS Online. So the first thing you need to do is log into your account, so that's www.arcgis.com, and then you click the sign in button. Then you sign into your account. Oops. Okay, I got it. And as I said, the features I'm showing you at the moment are just for subscribers to ArcGIS Online. There are lots of things you can do with ArcGIS Online when you don't subscribe, but this is one of the extra things you can do when you do subscribe as a school. Okay, so it's all open my organisational page, and I'm just going to go in and open a map and start from scratch to show you how some of these things work. So I've got a blank map here, and I'm going to zoom into a place. I'm going to type in Bath as my local location, bring up a map of Bath in the UK, and you can see at the moment in the detail section at the top here I've got the about, I've got the contents which has got nothing in, and the legend obviously got nothing in. So above that I've got the add button. I'm going to add this time map notes. And this is simply a drawing layer, so I'm going to call it test bath data 1, create. Okay, so I can excuse me, do lots of drawing into this layer, shapes, symbols and things like that. I'm just going to pick a pin for the moment, just for this exercise, and I'm going to put a pin over here in Twerton. I'm going to pick pin again and put a pin over here in Central Bath area, and another pin over here in Lansdowne area near my school, and so on. Put one down here as well. So you can see the principle. You can just put dots wherever you like on a map, so they could relate to study or fieldwork locations. So if I go back to my details now, you can see that I've got my layer, and the legend has now got no legend, but you can see they are just dots or pins here. So in the little submenu at the end of the new layer that's named test bath data 1 is a submenu where I can control various things, and I'm going to pick perform analysis for this. For my points now. There's lots of different options here under perform analysis, a lot of which I couldn't really do on this particular layer, but proximity, for example, I can create buffers around these dots of certain distances. So for example I could create a distance of 100 meters around each dot, or a kilometer, or things like that, should I wish to analyse certain distances. Anyway, I'm just going to pick the data enrichment tool that's here. So if I click the button that says enrich layer, it then says some instructions to me. So it says enrich test bath data points. That's the layer I've just made. That's fine, that's what I wanted to do. Then it says select a country, so I'm going to select the UK because the data I want is obviously relevant to here. So it brings up data that I can now access that relates to this particular region for the whole of the UK. So different types of data I can pick. If I go under the bottom one, purchasing power, for example, I can pick this one. If I just hover over it, it says purchasing power per capita. It's come slightly off the end of the text here, but by hovering over it I can see that's what it is, as opposed to another one here, purchasing power total, for adding up all the people in that area. So I want the purchasing power per capita. I'm quite happy with that. I'll collapse that. Population totals here, so I'd quite like to have the population total, and other information I'm interested in. Educational attainment, I might go for population with no qualifications, and I could go for an age pyramid data, so males. No, let's go for, does it have a total here? No. In this section it's just got it age pyramid for males and females, but if I go under the 15-year age increment I can just get the total. So this one's the total age of 0 to 14 years old, and the total age of 60 plus, let's say. I can obviously pick them all if I so wished. And there's lots more data here you can pick. I'll just pick that to start with to show the principles. Now I can then define the area for which the data is going to represent. It's going to give me some data about these areas that I'm interested in, such as the wealth. And I can do that based on a line distance or a drive time. So drive time would be done in how many minutes or hours I can drive from those dots, and I'm interested in data, so I might say within a 10-minute drive of this dot, can you tell me what the average income is, and so on. I'll do it on a line distance just for the moment, just to be straightforward, a kilometre, and I can pick different units here, 1, 2, 3 kilometres, whatever. So I'll just pick 1 kilometre here. Then I have to give it a name. So I've enriched test bar data points. I'll probably do. I might have done something like this before, so I'll just put a random thing at the end. I'll write the word test there as well. And I'm going to put it in my folder called test. I've got lots of folders here. Depending on how much you've set up in your content, you'll have more or less folders. It's just a way of keeping my files neat and tidy. So this is just a test for me, so I'm going to put it in my test folder so it doesn't clutter up anything else. You'll notice there's a button here that says show credits. That's quite useful because it tells me how much they're going to charge me for this, the credits I get from my subscription license, so I don't want them to run out. I can always buy more otherwise. So I've got 4 different dots here, and with the data I've asked, it's going to cost me 0.2 of a credit, and since I've got a couple of thousand, I'm not too worried about that. And then it says use current map extent here. So if, for example, I've got loads of dots around the country and I only want to analyse this one, this tick of use current map extent is quite useful because it won't produce the data on all the other thousands of dots that I might have. In this case, I've got 4 dots, they're in my map extent, it makes no difference whether I click it or not. But if you, for example, are zoomed into an area and you want the dots that are outside the area to be analysed as well, then you obviously don't want to have this one ticked. Anyway, it makes no difference this time. I'll click Run Analysis and see what happens. Okay, so what you should get here is a layer that's now being created, and you can see a little symbol whirling around, which means it's going off to try and process this task for me in some server somewhere in the cloud, and it's hopefully going to retrieve the data. Now, you might find you do this one day sometimes and it produces an error message, and you repeat it a few seconds later and it's fine. So sometimes you might be doing something wrong, but most often not, it's just a temporary glitch of some kind, so it's worth retrying some of these things. Anyway, this time it looks like it's worked, and I've got 2 layers. So test bath data 1 with my pins, which I can appear and disappear. I get rid of the pins now, and you can see it's created a brand new layer. If I click on one of the dots of the layer, it tells me that it's 0.1, it tells me that it's a ring buffer of 1 kilometre here, and if I go down, it's got some data in it. So I can see that within a kilometre of this area, I've got 1,281 people that are 0 to 14 years old and so on, and 3,000 or so that are 60 plus. I can also see there's 2,000 without qualifications. Now the reason for asking for total population is obviously all these numbers are in real values, so I can then go back and sort of work out percentages and things from that, so it's quite useful when comparing places and putting things in context. And I can see my purchasing power 16,277 in this area. If I click on Twerton, for example, I've got the data. Let's have a look. Purchasing power 11,000 here within a kilometre of that dot. So I can immediately see there's some differences between the populations in that region. I can also now show the data, so instead of just having these pins that I had before, I've now got another layer with some really nice data in with values. So I can change the symbols here under the little menu. I can pick, let's do it based on size, for example. I can pick the, let's have a look. But, there we are, purchasing power per capita, wealth in other words. And there we go. So I apply that data and I've got different size circles. I can see this one is the wealthiest area up here in Chalcombe, and Twerton is the poorer area of those two. Click on the data and I can see that's true when I look at the numbers, 17,000 wealth for Chalcombe. So you can see you can play around obviously with symbols to make them more effective under options here. Change all symbols. I might have a little bigger size for the largest one. Let's have a look at how that's gone, you see. So that just exaggerates it. So I can play around with that, or I could have just picked a colour scheme to do it instead. So same idea. Might have a 2-tone colour, let's say. Poorer areas in red, richer areas in blue. Again, change all symbols allows me to sort of pick a bigger size for those circles. So I've done there, so I can see now I've coded them. So all I did is change it by colour this time, picked purchasing power, and changed the colour scheme I wanted, and under options, change your symbols, change the size of the symbol. So I've got quite effective little shading. Now this is just an experiment, a few dots, but you can see the power of this very quickly to create, to draw on data that's available, to look at areas and differences. Well, that's a very simple technique, just by actually adding a map notes that I just explained to you, and then enriching them very quickly and creating new original data. And this is obviously in this case based on a kilometre radius, but I could have picked a drive time, I could have picked a different size. So again, we're in control of that data. It will come out different every time. The other thing that's worth thinking about then is obviously you can bring data in different forms. Instead of having just those pins that I brought in first time, it could have been fieldwork locations that I gathered either using mobile devices in the field or from a spreadsheet which I've just brought in with longitude, latitude data and so on. So, and I could then enrich that. So you can enrich, any layer that you've created. Just to show you another example of enriching layer data, let's go on to Add and search for layers. Just to show you that you can do it in quite a different way, I'm going to go to ArcGIS Online under the inbox here, and I'm going to search for deprivation data, because I know that there's some new data here produced by the Esri UK team. So here it is, index and multiple deprivation for the southwest. I can add that in, and this time I'm going to actually get a shaded map layer, or in this case it hasn't got any colour shading in, but it's got a map layer in here. So I'll just switch off everything else except this index and multiple deprivation that I've just brought in. At the moment the deprivation layer doesn't look great, but I could colour code it, so I'll just quickly do that. Change symbol. I'm going to go to colour. I'm going to select a field, so I'll pick something like index and multiple deprivation, and I'll just quickly apply that so you get the idea. So at the moment I've got the blues are least deprived and the pale colours are more deprived. I might pick a two-tone colour for this. So red to green, apply, so red is most deprived, green is least deprived. But you'll notice with this deprivation data, if I just click on a square here, that it's all in ranked form. So in this data, 1 means the most deprived ward in the UK. This is the whole of the UK, and somewhere around 36,000 or 34,000 is the one that scores the best in the UK. But they're just rankings, there are no real sort of values in terms of pounds or pence or anything else in there. So very useful data, but hard to see specific values. So again, I could say, well, I want to actually get the real sort of purchasing power for all these wards. Now this time I've got shape data, I've got a shape of the different wards in Bath, and I can enrich them as well in exactly the same way. So I'll just zoom in a little bit, so I'll show you the effect of using current map extent. So there we go, I'll pick an area here for example. And I've actually got the whole of the southwest in these wards open, so you'll I'll zoom out a little bit more so you can get the idea of this zooming effect. Okay, so if I go to this layer now and I go to perform analysis here now, then I'm going to do the same thing, enrich data. Enrich data is over here, and I'm going to click that, and it's now enriching it for the index and multiple deprivations. That's fine. And I'm going to select my country just as I did before. So I'm going to select United Kingdom, and this time again I can pick the data that I'm interested in for United Kingdom, and I'm going to do the same sort of thing. I'm going to pick purchasing power per capita. There we go, that's that one. And I can add more data to it as well, but I'll leave it at that for the moment. You'll notice this time you don't have the option to define the areas or distance buffers, because it will just do it for the areas that are drawn. And again, it's going to give it a name. So it's a long name. I'm just again going to write test enrich Bath wards 6 or something. So I know I've not done that before, and I put it in my test folder. So again, a name and which folder you want to save it in. Test folder there. Again, the same principle, show credit. So you can see I've got lots of shapes. I don't know how many there are, maybe 50 or so shapes. No, 53, that was a good guess. And the credits it's going to take from me is 0.53. So again, not very much in terms of use of credits, but it does use credits. You'll notice I've got use current map extent. If I unclick that, the whole of the southwest would be enriched, which obviously would use a lot of credits up. So if I had unclicked that, it would be perhaps showing me that There we go. That's still a tip 53, but that one might be instead of 53, I don't know, 3,000 wards or something, and the credit usage would obviously be much higher. So that's why it's quite useful to use the current map extent. I'm going to run the analysis now, and I'm going to keep that current map extent ticked, because otherwise it will do them all. So it's just going to hopefully create a new layer for just these particular shapes in this area. So again, like I said before, sometimes you'll do everything I've just said and it won't work. It might produce an error message. It's pretty reliable, it's pretty good, but in case you do, just don't despair, just maybe try and do it again and see if it produces a result for you. So you can see again it's whirring around, it's doing the thinking, the information's going off to the server to request the job I've just asked for. So you can see it's now got a new blue layer that's been created. I'm going to untick my index of multiple deprivation, which is underneath it, and you can see if I zoom out that I'll put them both on again. You can see index of multiple deprivation, the green layer, extends beyond this, but because I'm only doing the ones that I said were in the map extent, it's only produced a layer for those particular shapes. Okay, that's all I was interested in. They're ones around Bath for my particular purpose here. And again, if I click on a shape, now you can see it's got the original data, or the deprivation data that's there that I had originally, so it's kept all that, but it's also added a new bit of data, which is the purchasing power, and I could have added lots and lots of new bits of data, but I only added one. So that particular area, that particular ward, has a average purchasing power income of 15,000. This one in Twerton, similar to where we were looking at before, was nearer 10,000. There you go. And if I look at this one up in that Lansdowne area, 17,000. So I can see there's significant differences in their wealth, and not quite sure why that western one's disappeared. Whether that wasn't within my map extent when I was zoomed in, maybe it was just outside it, I suspect. So where I'd zoomed was just a little bit south of there, and it did all the others. That's probably what happened. But anyway, that was just to do with the map extent area. So anyway, I'm going to now change the symbols. So the secret little menu from the drop down arrow for that layer, the enriched layer. Change symbols. Change symbols is here. I'm going to do it by colour this time. Select my fields. Well, I'm going to do my purchasing power this time, which is the new thing I brought in. I'm going to again pick a couple of different colours. Red's going to be the poorer areas, and green's going to be the wealthy areas. So I've colour shaded that map, and this time, as I say, it's based on sort of real numerical data in terms of purchasing power, as opposed to ranking data that I had before for income deprivation rank. Hopefully there should be a similar pattern, but obviously the deprivation rank does include a number of factors that's used to calculate it. So now I've got a real map at a ward level of income here, colour coded, and I can play around with the scales and the looks and the intervals and all the other things I might want in that. So here we go, there's my original circles that I've got. I can move that layer up or down in my order, and I've got the enriched Bath wards data as well over here. So hopefully this exercise has given you an insight into the power of enriching data, the sort of things you can do with it. And obviously this is just a random place I picked in Bath. You could do it for anywhere in the UK in the same principles. You can do it across the world. If you go to different places, obviously the data you can access is slightly different in terms of how much you can get. The USA's got the most, the UK's got a reasonable amount of data, types of data. You go to somewhere else like Kenya or whatever, and you have to experiment as to what data might or might not be available. But it's always increasing, it's always developing this, and data's improving all the time. So it's something that will evolve, so just be aware of that tool, and I think it's something hopefully you'll find really useful in your geography teaching. Okay, we'll leave it there for now, but if you need to contact me, then my name's Raphael Heath, Head of Geography, Royal High School Bath, part of the GDST, Girls' Day School Trust group of schools. My email is r.heath@rhsb.gdst.net. Okay,